Thanks for joining us, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar about how to personalize your child's autism nutrition plan with my guest, Julie Matthews. I am Maria Rickard-Hong. I'm the Education and Media Director for Documenting Hope and your host. If you have a question, please type it into the chat box, and we're going to be taking questions at the end. For those of you who don't know about us, Documenting Hope is a 501c3 nonprofit that provides root cause healing solutions for children's chronic health and developmental conditions. We provide resources and support for parents and practitioners who are ready to move beyond the conventional symptom suppressive approach to chronic illness management and to instead use a root cause approach. You can find out more about us at our website, documentinghope.com. And I encourage you to join us inside Healing Together. It's the official healing program from Documenting Hope, and you're going to find live monthly house calls with Dr. Medea Saeed and Dr. Heather Tallman Room. We also have live community Q&A calls with Beth Lambert, Shandy Lasky, and myself. And we also have a private member forum, and you can ask your questions without being censored, like you might be on social media. You can also follow our carefully designed healing approach known as our Healing Trail Map, which works for kids with neurodevelopmental disorders as well as those with PANS, PANDAS, Lyme disease, autoimmune disorders, and more. You can learn more at our other website, healing.documentinghope.com/register. And just a quick disclaimer about our webinar. This webinar is not a substitute for medical advice, treatment, diagnosis, or consultation with a medical professional. It is intended for general informational purposes only and should not be relied upon to make determinations related to treatment of a medical condition. Documenting Hope is not verified and does not guarantee the accuracy of the information provided in this webinar. And today, my guest is Julie Matthews. She's a certified nutritional consultant. She published Nourishing Hope for Autism in 2008 and just recently published her latest book, The Personalized Autism Nutrition Plan, Nourishing Hope for Kids with ASD, ADHD, anxiety, and neurodevelopmental delays. She's also a co-author of Comprehensive Nutritional and Dietary Intervention for Autism Spectrum Disorder, a randomized controlled 12-month trial that's peer-reviewed, medical research journal article, and also another one where she's the lead author. Came out recently. Last year, it's the ratings of the effectiveness of 13 therapeutic diets for autism spectrum disorder, results of a national survey. And you can find out more about her work at her websites, nourishinghope.com, bioindividualnutrition.com, and nutritionforpregnancy.com. Hello, Julie. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Maria. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is you're the grandmaster, I think, of our webinar guests. I think you're the all-time winner at 4 times or maybe even fifth. I can't remember.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. Plus, you spoke at our conference as well. So, yeah, all things
Yes,
really here. So, and you just recently published your new book, The Personalized Autism Nutrition Plan. You have it behind you there. And
yes.
I read it. I love it. I think people, anybody that's struggling with diet for their kids needs to get it. And
Mm.
you can just tell us a little bit more about it and tell me what I think is so great about it or tell others.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to share anything I can to help people.
Sure. Um,
Uh, where should we start? Do we want to, yeah, you let me know. You want me to talk about a little bit about the book, or do you want to
yeah,
just ask me some? Okay.
yeah, because I found like I guess it's the first part of it where you go through the foundational steps. Like
Mhm.
anybody and everybody that's thinking of changing their diet should look into making these changes. And also, why is diet so important? Is it like, do you have to do diet to help your child get better?
Yes.
The things.
Yeah, yes. So the book is based on my Nourishing Hope for Healing Kids program. And so it's a proven, program that's been going on for a number of years now. So all of the stories in the book are from real families. All of the experience is based on my over 2 decades of working with families. And as you mentioned, the research that I've done. And so the program is divided into two halves. The first half is the one you're talking about right now, which
Right.
are what I call the Nourishing Hope Essentials. And those are the things that I feel that any of us could do. And they're just good, healthy nutrition principles. So they start with avoiding the junk. So if that's junk in your food, junk in your environment, if it's toxins, pesticides, or junk food,
Mhm.
additives, all of that, that's step one of the process. And then it goes into a variety of other steps that I'm happy to talk about. But from adding good nutrition, what does good nutrition look like? And these principles are great for kids. They're great for kids with various neurodevelopmental delays or a variety of different conditions, or really any of us, because we're all humans. And yes, we're all unique and need a personalized plan, but there are some things that are pretty standard among all people, like avoid additives, avoid artificial things, avoid pesticides, reduce the junk food, ideally avoid it altogether,
Right.
add good healthy foods, add good protein, add good fiber, add antioxidant rich foods. What do those look like? Where do we find those? Why are they so important? Of course, I go into the research behind all of this because it wouldn't be it wouldn't be my book if it didn't have hundreds of research studies.
Right.
Uh, and then it goes into basic nutritional supplementation. So
Mhm.
getting all of our bases covered, whether we're a good healthy eater or maybe more of a restrictive eater, maybe a bit of a picky eater, which takes us into step four, which goes into how to support picky eaters. And hopefully we'll go into that more, but it's very common
Right.
in not only kids with autism, kids with developmental delays, but it's not uncommon for many kids in general. And then it goes into a gluten-free, dairy-free diet, how to take care of yourself, and then the second half of the book, which we can get into in, I'm sure, great detail if we want, which
Right.
is really more about my second concept, which is bio-individual nutrition, which is individualizing the diet, the therapeutic diet strategy or strategies based on what is underlying that person.
Right. Right. So, and I think I wrote up in your I wrote a review of the book, and I called it the Holy Grail of therapeutic nutrition, especially for autism diets. It's pages 38 and 39, which I think is just fabulous to have it all here in one place. And you go through different symptoms and then different kinds of diets: low sugar, healthy, gluten-free, casein-free, low salicylate, low sag, which I think is a Julie thing, which I think
Yes.
actually really good to put it that way. Maybe you could explain, first of all, what that chart is, how it can help people. Yeah,
Yes,
page
absolutely.
39.
Absolutely. I'm getting it out myself.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I've tried to put a lot of charts and things in the book because I don't know, I'm a visual person, so that
Mhm.
always helps me a lot. So there's lots of charts and graphs and other things. This particular one goes into all the different therapeutic diets that I talk about in the book, and then a variety of different symptoms, both, mood and behavior, learning, digestion, and then other physical and health symptoms, and which diets tend to be best for helping improve those symptoms. And this chart comes from a combination of many years of working with families, but also in combination with that latest scientific paper that you mentioned
Mhm.
on the ratings of the effectiveness of 13 therapeutic diets that I published not too long ago,
Mhm.
where we looked at over 800 families. So it's not only the hundreds of families that I've worked with personally and really holding their hand on and really getting detailed knowledge on the food compounds that can cause symptoms, which diets improve those symptoms, but also 800 other families and what their experience was with the diets.
Right.
And so it goes into, diets that are the top diets for when we have these symptoms, the great diets, and then the good diets. And, obviously everybody is different. And this is an overall, I probably could have marked every single one of these with all of these are good at improving.
Yeah.
But, I'm trying to be helpful
Right, right,
and,
right.
make some distinctions in there. So I really took a combination of all of that and put this together. So, for example, with something like aggression, which can be very disruptive to the individual and to families, there's really interesting research on sugar for that, which I don't think is the first thing that people think of. I often think of salicylates,
Yep.
and you'll see that's one of my top ones for that. But also, our research showed a low sugar diet, and so that's where some of this comes in. Hyperactivity, another one that is a big factor for actually both of those two diets,
Hmm.
as well as other ones. And we go down to like health. A healthy diet was one of the top diets to improve health. Imagine that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting to see it in scientific terms, not just like, oh, a healthy diet's going to help you be healthier. Well,
Right.
does it really? Well,
Yeah.
it does show. And when they say healthier, we mean like, less, colds and, those kinds of things. So what else do I want to say about this little chart?
It's a
It
good
goes, yeah,
stepping off or jumping off point, I think, for parents to figure out like, okay, I've done your essential steps, the gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free, I think you call it, those three
yes.
things together, and then cleaning up, getting out all the additives and everything, and then where next? And so I guess someone would take a look at that chart and say, okay, what are my child's, biggest symptoms that he or she needs help with? Is that right?
Yes, and I try to include both like low sugar and healthy diets, which
Mhm.
was in our study, as well as some of the more uh, maybe less well-known therapeutic diets, so that if you're new, you don't have to get into all the fancy stuff. You can literally start with lower sugar and healthy and see how that's going to help. And also, one of the things we discovered in our study was that there was a um, really a correlation with certain symptoms and certain diets. So certain diets were better
Mhm.
at helping improve certain symptoms. And so that's why I think this chart is really helpful. Like you said, if you're new or you need a jumping off point, or maybe some of these diets, I don't know, maybe you know a lot about them, but you don't know where to start, or maybe you don't know anything about them and it's overwhelming. It gives you a place to get started and kind of use those symptoms to help you personalize
Mhm.
your approach and at least get you started with where you might begin with that personalized approach.
Right, right. So a parent would do your essential steps, and then I think the next step that you recommend is the SAG diet, what I call the Julie diet, the low salicylate, glutamate, and amine diet, because
Yes.
there's a lot of overlap there, and 75% of kids with autism, at least, and maybe other kids too, tend to have problems with all three of those kinds of foods. So maybe talk.
Yes. Yes. So the low SAG diet is exactly what you said, low salicylate, amine, and glutamate. And the reason that my version is a little different is because there are really simple versions of the low salicylate diet that don't take out too many foods.
Mhm.
And then there are much more restrictive versions of all the salicylate, amine, and glutamate. And so, what I've done for my families over the years is to kind of simplify that down a little bit, where instead of having like 5 or 6 categories, there's 3 categories, but then there's a little nuance in there if someone needs to be more, is more sensitive and needs to restrict it. And the way that I implement and test those food compounds is a little bit different as well.
Okay.
So that's what makes it different. There are, like I said, lots of versions of them out there, but mine is basically based on clinical experience and trying to make it so it's more doable for people and not too restrictive, because that diet can get very restrictive very quickly. And
Right.
I've found that there's a way to still get the good results without having to make it quite as strict as some people do.
Right. So you recommend taking out a little less to begin with and going lower and slower. It's going to take longer, but I think you get better results and you don't. I mean, these kids are picky eaters in general anyway, and then you're going to restrict their diet even more. That makes it kind of concerning.
Yes, it makes it concerning and it makes it challenging.
Yes.
And then that can make it sometimes not doable. And then so then you don't get the results. And if you did need to take it even more strict, I do explain how to do that, but I don't start there. I give a little bit more leeway for people that the more strict level is a little bit more doable for people. And then I also explain various ways to implement it if they're not really sure and they want to do it a little bit more um, lenient at first. So anyway, that's what makes it a different is the foodless and the implementation and the test back is a little different.
Right. The food lists are not as restrictive as the full diets all on their own. And I think you say do about 3 to 6 weeks of
Yes.
kind of thing, and then do the test back
Yes.
at a time after that.
Yes.
Okay.
And my test back, like I said, is different because some people might want to do they might want to do a more gentle test back. Other people, so there's different versions. So then you can decide for your child how much you suspect this to be a problem, and then there's different ways to do that so you don't get a big reaction.
Right.
Um, so yeah.
And you recommend, I assume, that parents keep a food journal and a food mood symptom kind of journal, like once what their child is eating, and then what kind of symptoms either disappear, reappear, especially upon test back. I mean, that's where you get the gold, I think, is like, oh, this really did help.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's one of those things. Like I always, I often say, like, if you ask me what I had for dinner 3 days ago, I don't remember. I
Mhm.
probably don't remember, right? If you're trying to remember 2 weeks ago, which symptoms did they have, and did they have a bowel movement that day, and were they hyperactive the next day? It's really,
Right.
I don't think it's really possible to be able to remember all of that. You remember it in the moment, and you
Mhm.
think, "Ooh, but you don't necessarily remember it later." So yeah, so I am a big believer in the a food journal, and even if you have to simplify the food journal a little bit more and just say like, "Oh, I forgot to do the food journal today, but I'm going to go back now and I'm going to try to fill in some of those gaps." Or if you make a note like, "Oh, they had such and such today, and I noticed," anything you can do, even if it's not the full journal of a half a cup of this and a third,
Right.
whatever you can do, just to